in a conventional war over Taiwan, I don't think the US is assured of victory. It's too close to China. And the US aircraft carriers will all be at risk. In fact, Trump invited the Pakistani army chief to the White House, who agreed to nominate Trump for the Nobel Prize. When the Berlin Wall fell, I remember Lee Kuan Yew's comment. He said, "The ice is cracking." It was a great glacier during the Cold War, and now that ice was cracking. Understanding how the ice was cracking and what it will all lead to is life and death for a small state. Because if you read the future wrongly and you're on the wrong piece of ice, you are in trouble. But if you, anticipating what might happen, skipped on to a stable part, and then the ice flows, you'll be taken far ahead, safely and soundly. But of course, no one has a crystal ball. I mean, we might have a sense of the climate. We know winter is coming. But what the weather will be like tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, we cannot be sure. And we cannot depend on crystal balls that this is how the future will be, because that is an illusion. One instead has to ask, when the situation is stable again, what will it look like? And this gives us an intimation of how the ice will crack and the direction in which it will move. Then construct the possible scenarios and say, look, well, how do I diversify risk? If this happens, I'll be here. If that happens, I'll be there. Maybe I can be a Venice. Maybe I should be a Dubrovnik. This intellectual exercise is vital for small countries. We can't change the world, but we can observe clinically what is happening. You take, for example, the war in Ukraine today, which has created so much anger and hatred in Europe, to a point where conversation is sometimes impossible. Mato got me to visit to Trier. I wanted to visit the birthplace of Karl Marx, and also to see the Porta Negra. And then he had someone for lunch. And at lunch, I expressed certain views, and this professor decided not to talk to me. He said, your premise is wrong. I was astounded. I thought, we are here for a conversation. If we disagree, let us discuss it. But in his mind, he had written me off because he felt that I had some sympathies for Russia. My views were much more complicated than that. I thought, yes, this is a phase Europe is going through. After Russia invaded Ukraine, there was a mobilization and the re-strengthening of the transatlantic alliance. And so the media, I used to joke that the BBC became the ZBC, because every day the headlines was about Zelensky. I thought, what's happening? But it was a campaign to mobilize large numbers. So now we are stuck in a situation where everyone is exhausted. And we need emotions to come down and a certain clarity in the mind to be reestablished. Then we decide how to move into the future. But whatever that future, Russia is not going to disappear. It's going to be around. My old friend, well, he's a young friend, my old young friend, Alexander Stubb, president of Finland, whom I knew when he was foreign minister. A very athletic guy, you know. We were in the same hotel, in the same gym, and he was skipping from machine to machine. I was there resting, watching him, and we struck up a conversation. Trump invited him to the White House because he plays good golf, and Trump liked him. And then he said, except 1944, when Finland, deciding that it could not change the future, had a peace agreement with the Soviet Union, for which it had to give up Karelia and large chunks of territory, and agreed to be Finlandized, to be neutral. Now let's play back. Imagine if Finland had decided to fight to the end and got occupied by the Red Army. Where would Finland be today? So was that sacrifice made in 1944 worthwhile? Of course it was. But at that time, it was a tough decision. And for him to say it about the Ukraine was very brave. So I WhatsApped him. I said, Alex, I salute your courage in this period of high emotion. You have to live with Russia. And the Americans are pushing for NATO countries to up defense spending to 5%. Let us say they do that. I'm not sure they would, but let's say they do that. After 10 years, when they are more muscular, and the US said, well, this is how NATO should behave, they may say, no, I don't think so. When Europe is better armed, the nature of the transatlantic alliance will change. And Europe having different interests vis-a-vis China, Russia, Middle East, Africa, will then begin to tell the Americans, hey, wait a minute, we understand your position, but we have a different point of view. Then Europe will gradually emerge as a separate pole, allied to the US, but separate. China will, of course, be a separate pole, as it has always been in human history. And Trump, now faced with the prospect of China playing the trump card of rare earths, will have to find an agreement. And I think between the two, they will reach an agreement not only on TikTok, on magnets, on chips, on many other things. I'm not worried about war breaking out over Taiwan because, I mean, to begin with, in a conventional war over Taiwan, I don't think the US is assured of victory. It's too close to China. And the US aircraft carriers will all be at risk. And furthermore, if there's war over Taiwan, TSMC will be destroyed. Then America and Europe will not have the chips that they need for their industries. But China can survive without TSMC. Not 100%, but maybe 80%, 70%. So I'm not worried about Taiwan in the shorter term. And for some time, India thought it could use the US against China. The US thought it could use India against China. But when the Ukraine war happened, India was not going to disavow Russia. And after the air war between India and Pakistan took place, India found out that the US was not going to support India against Pakistan. In fact, Trump invited the Pakistani army chief to the White House, who agreed to nominate Trump for the Nobel Prize. So India stood firm. So yesterday, Trump, realizing that you can't bully India, sent him birthday greetings. And Modi replied, my friend, thank you for your kind felicitations. So we are seeing now a multipolar world reconfiguring. And for small countries like us, Croatia, Singapore, how do we triangulate our path into the future? Thank you.